Castlevania is a classic. This is definitely true. The team behind the game wanted to make a platformer with horror elements, like famous horror characters, most noticeably, obviously, being the final boss himself, Dracula, and a much more dark soundtrack than a lot of games from its time. Castlevania has gone down in history as a special NES game, and while the sequel, Castlevania 2, was weird at best, the third one brought things back to how the original was, and the fourth game in the series, Super Castlevania 4, improved on everything. The first three games were on the NES, so they had to abide by the limitations of that console. 4 was the first Castlevania on the SNES, so it fully took advantage of the hardware with much more detailed sprites and more creative mechanics, as well as controlling better than just about any other game from the time. Plus, you can do whatever this is. While the SNES was still a step up in technology, there was still more that could be done, such as CDs, which could hold more memory than cartridges, had more advanced sound, and a lot more. Of course, it's a no-brainer to make a Castlevania game for the new CD technology, such as what was offered with the TurboGrafx 16, and such Castlevania Rondo of Blood was born. In Japan. Yeah, we never got Rondo of Blood here in the US. Not sure why, but thanks to it being re-released on the PS4 via this neat collection with Symphony of the Night, we can now play it. But how is this lost gem held up? Let's find out. Rondo of Blood begins with, Jesus, what is this? So for the PS4 collection, they decided to give Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night these dumb borders around the game. And I just don't like it. With editing, I can get rid of it for the rest of the video, but still not a fan of it. Anyway, the game begins with a resurrection of Dracula, brought back to life by killing this person, I guess. Dracula ends up kidnapping the 4 maidens from the town, and Richter Belmont, a descendant of the previous game's hero Simon Belmont, is going to stop him. When the game starts, Richter is riding his way to the castle when death comes to stop him, but is not very successful. Then the game begins. The first thing I noticed when starting the game is the controls a bit stiff. Kinda like the NES games, which is a little disappointing because of how much Super Castlevania 4 improved them, with a much looser feel, plus you can't do this anymore. The first stage, Dinner of Flames, is pretty easy, which helps at the very least get used to the control, but trust me, that ease won't last long. Castlevania games are known for being really difficult, and Rondo of Blood is no exception to that rule. The boss rush, that is stage 6, was especially difficult, but anyway, stage 2 is where Rondo of Blood's strength shows up. See, part of the way through the stage, you can get a key which can unlock a door near the end of the level that leads to one of the 4 maidens, Maria Renard. All 4 maidens you find throughout the game. The difference with Maria is that you actually can play as her. She has a double jump, these bird things, she can shoot freaking dragons at people because why the hell not? She does take more damage than Richter though, so it's a bit more even. I prefer playing as Maria, but I think the level design works really well with both characters. In fact, the levels are so freaking good. Every level is so distinct, like Stage 5's Ghost Ship, or Stage 7 taking place in a clock tower, a staple for the franchise, and alternate Stage 3 taking place in a swamp-like place, and the levels themselves are designed flawlessly, with a couple of exceptions. Mainly alternate Stage 4, which has this dumb boat part that's really cheap, and this part with bats later down the stage that I don't like, but as a whole, this is some of, if not the most genius level design ever in a platformer. Plus, a really cool first for the series is exploration. The previous games were completely linear, and now there are not just 4 maidens to find, but also alternate stages with their own unique ideas. This, plus multiple characters, makes this game so replayable to a degree that no other Castlevania game can match. Also helps that this game's soundtrack is wonderful, just like the prior games. Bloodlines and Opus 13 are the highlights for me, but the whole soundtrack is great. Same for the visuals. The monster and boss design is top notch, and every level looks lovingly made to fit the game. The bosses themselves are for the most part good, being challenging while still fair. If I have to nitpick a bit though, they do reuse some bosses for the alternate stages. This Minotaur, in particular, you have to fight 3 times if you're going for the alternate stages. It's far from horrible, it's nitpicking if anything, just something I noticed. Well, it's time for the final battle, and Dracula is not as hard as I was expecting. Still not easy, but just not nearly as hard as I thought it would be. And with that, Rondo of Blood is done. It's a shame we did not get this game in the US, as it's a great game! But what we did get was Castlevania Dracula X, a semi-sequel, semi-reimagining of Rondo of Blood. And okay, the story is pretty similar. The graphics are still good, if a bit worse thanks to cartridge limitations. Similar story for the music, which, while it's still good, is a bit less than the original. And yep, I think that's all the nice things I can say about Dracula X, because this game sucks. I mean, to start, it did lose a lot of Rondo of Blood's key features. You can only play as Richter. There are only 2 hidden exits, which decreases the replayability significantly, but that's nothing to just the horrible level design. The level design is the most stupid, unfair stuff ever. It's so bad. There are so many instances of pits you cannot see coming, or godforsaken crows or bats knocking you off ledges. Bottomless pits are everywhere in this game. Heck, one of the secret exits is inside a bottomless pit. But to save the 2 maidens in the game, you cannot fall into this pit. So fall once, start the whole 5-minute level over again. And you will fall in, because of the freaking bats. And secret level 5 is even worse. Sure, you don't have to worry about accidentally falling into another level, but Jesus, this level goes insane with the bottomless pit. And this stupid jump, if you don't hit this bird with your whip perfectly, he will knock you into the pit. He just will. And this kind of pixel perfect stuff is all over this game, and it just makes the game not fun. Look, I'm not gonna pretend like the previous games, except Rondo of Blood, did not have their cheap moments, but this is just ridiculous. The final boss sucks as well. Somehow I found it easier than Rondo's, but just look at this. Like the rest of the game, bottomless pits everywhere, and with the control of Richter, don't be surprised if death occurs. Sorry to have ended it a bit negatively, but I will say this. I think Rondo of Blood is possibly the greatest platformer I've ever played. Every single level is tightly designed, the music is energetic, and the replayability is some of the best in the series. Easily recommend it to anyone. Dracula X, on the other hand, while still having a couple of good things, just fails to be fun due to cheap level design. So don't play it unless you're a super big Castlevania fan. Dracula X is dumb, but Rondo of Blood is still really good. Plus, Rondo of Blood is still the only Castlevania game that lets you shoot dragons at people. This game's awesome.